Hello and welcome to my thoughts on Dragon Ball Z, the Manga edition. Or sorry, the Manga edition, I'm still terrible at pronouncing it correctly. As you may or may not be aware, I already read through the original Dragon Ball manga and did a thoughts on video about it on this channel, I want to say like a month or so ago. So that's available to go and listen to if you are curious about my thoughts on, Goku as a kid and his fight with Piccolo, the great demon king. As I mentioned in that video, the kind of like adult Goku versus Piccolo fight really felt like a turning point in the tone for the series, and I kind of imagined that's where Dragon Ball Z would lead, and I was correct. That is absolutely the kind of tone that Dragon Ball Z would consistently hit, but that tone didn't necessarily set me up for the kind of storytelling I expected out of Dragon Ball Z, because you have to remember I'm coming at this from an angle of someone who has read and watched manga and anime that's been inspired obviously by its major predecessor in the genre, Dragon Ball Z, but with more kind of, I don't know how to put it without belittling Dragon Ball Z, which I shouldn't be doing because Dragon Ball Z is amazing in its own way. So I guess I should start by adding a big disclaimer. I really enjoyed Dragon Ball Z, it was a lot of fun, but it definitely wasn't what I was expecting in terms of, like, it didn't necessarily have a message to give you, and it didn't necessarily have any dark undertones, or it didn't really explore any dark themes the way something like Bleach or Naruto does, for instance. Mostly Naruto, Bleach not so much, but still Bleach. So Naruto is all about growing up during the horrors of war, and it goes out of its way over hundreds of chapters to make its long-laboured point about war and peace, and how hard it is to strive for peace when you've got these personal hatreds brought about by, what happens in war and stuff like that. That's not what Dragon Ball does at all. Not that it's bad for it, it's just different, and I didn't expect it. Dragon Ball is very simple in comparison. Oh no, big bad enemy. Oh, I'm gonna get myself very powerful, we fight, and then rinse and repeat basically, with no real I guess consequences. And maybe this is because I wasn't reading it week to week like when it first published. I wasn't born until, by the way, the month after the final chapter of Dragon Ball Z came out, so that's interesting to think about. But reading it, kind of binge reading it, and not having a suspenseful wait between the chapters, maybe that kind of took away the feeling of, oh my god, what's going to happen next, but it definitely felt like there were no real stakes given the way death and resurrection worked. In the first arc of Dragon Ball Z, with Vegeta and everything, it seemed like Toriyama was making an effort to move away from the ability to revive people with Dragon Balls, but then later on in that arc he brought the Dragon Balls back, and it just felt like every time a main character died, they found some kind of loophole to bring them back. So by the end of the manga, when Vegeta dies, I'm just like, yeah, sure, we'll see him again soon. And lo and behold, again, it sounds like I'm ragging on this. I'm not. I really enjoyed it. I just want to get it out of the way, but it didn't have the kind of emotional gravity that I thought it would, given how many people love it so dearly. I'm not saying they shouldn't love it so dearly, I'm just saying they love it dearly for reasons, for different reasons than I expected them to. The characters are still top tier characters. I really enjoyed them, although I have some gripes about Goku. But first let's talk about Vegeta's a really interesting character, really fun. I love the way he's drawn. I love the way he is just constantly not taking any of Goku's shit. I think my favourite character in the entire manga has to be Piccolo. I love him, I love his design, I love his characteristics. He's just so cool. I love him as Gohan's kind of mentor, or as his true dad, I guess a lot of the memes would say, but I also feel that way. At the beginning of the final third of this manga, we kind of got a slice of life of Gohan as like a 16-year-old in high school, and I really enjoyed that version of Gohan as well. But if we're going to talk Goku, I have to say, the biggest thing I did not expect out of this manga is that Goku isn't really a hero. I mean, he is, kind of by circumstance, but I guess he cares about saving the world, but really, it's stated multiple times, he cares more about fighting. And I get that this is meant to be a light-hearted manga, and, cause and effect isn't really meant to be taken that seriously, but his simple act of letting Vegeta live at, well, not the end of the first arc, I'd say the end of the first half of the first arc, letting him live at the end of that fight really felt like so irresponsible, and it just led directly to the deaths of more innocent people, as he knew it would, just because he wanted to fight a stronger version of Vegeta. And you can make an argument that that's a Saiyan blood in him, but the manga never really explores the themes of, the fact that Goku isn't necessarily the most heroic figure that everyone expects him to be. Opinions I have seen online that I agree with is that he's also a really bad dad. And luckily this does come up towards the end of a second arc when they're fighting Cell. And Piccolo's like, you idiot, he's not thinking about how angry he is when they talk about Gohan. He's not thinking about how angry he is that Cell killed all his people. He's just thinking, I'm in so much pain and why isn't Dad helping me? And Goku's like, oh shit, you're right, I suck. He's never around, he only wants his kids for them to be really powerful fighters. And I don't know if the anime expands upon Goku in any meaningful way beyond this, but in the manga at least, he really kind of sucks. As far as personality goes, in my opinion. Like, for instance, like, he keeps doing it as well, like, when he's dead, and he's like, oh yeah, don't bring me back to life, I want the next generation to handle future fights, and then they sorely need him, and he's like, ah shit, I guess I shouldn't have let myself stay dead. The family interactions of Goku's family are just so bizarre. Like, his wife dies and he doesn't bat an eyelid, because I guess, like me, he knows that she'll be back in a chapter or two. But honestly, the arcs were great. Like, I split this personally, I assume most people do as well, into 3 main arcs. The kind of Frieza arc, which I would include the beginning, like, science stuff with as well. I feel like those 2 arcs kind of lead into each other enough to be called one arc. So the kind of science / Frieza arc, the Cell arc, and the freaking Boo arc. Out of all of them, I think the Boo arc was my least favourite arc. As a villain, I didn't love his design, and he just kind of like, oh, a wizard made him. Okay, that's not very interesting compared to something like, oh, Frieza, he's just like this really powerful galactic overlord. I think I loved the first arc the most for that kind of thing, especially coming off the back of the original Dragon Ball manga, which was like this planetary scale conflict between Goku and Demon King Piccolo. It's like, well, where can you go next? Oh, of course we go to space. And it was just so cool to see what space is like in Dragon Ball, and I hope that, because I know Dragon Ball Super is a thing, I hope we kind of go back there at some point. I was a little sad to see us pivot away from that with the freaking AI arc of the what Cell again? He's like an AI, he's like a, you know what I mean. I wasn't big on the Cell arc when it began, but by the time Cell was introduced, it did start to get interesting, and I did really enjoy my time with that as well. I really like the design of number 17 and number 18, I believe that's their names. I also really kind of enjoyed the Terminator 1 vibes of Trunks coming back from the past, and the kind of timey-wimey shit that happened alongside that, and his mission and his character and stuff like that. That was really fun to read through. And while I didn't necessarily love Boo or love his arc as much as the previous arcs, I still enjoyed my time with it. I think maybe I was just starting to get a little bit burnt out on because I was reading it back to back kind of thing. Maybe I was getting a little bit burnt out on oh no, he's too strong. Oh wait, I'm gonna do this weird arbitrary training to boost my power level. Rah, now I'm on the same power level as Boo. Oh no, Boo just got stronger. It just kind of repeats itself after a while. So I'm wondering if I should go straight into Dragon Ball Super, or if I should hold off and have a break first. I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. You'll know whenever something comes up on the channel, I'm sure. I'm considering getting back into Marvel Unlimited soon, so I might put the Shonen Jump subscription aside for a while. I know it's super cheap, and it's way cheaper than Marvel Unlimited, but I'm obviously not going to be using one if I've got the other. Either way, I'm really glad that I am now educated in the ways of Dragon Ball in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, because they are so kind of important for the genre of shonen. It really feels like everything, and maybe I'm just contributing to a myth here, but like from my perspective, it looks like a lot of stuff was built on the back of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And if maybe I didn't expect Dragon Ball to be so simplistic, maybe that's just because it was a progenitor, and I'm used to manga which have built upon that and been like, so we can kind of use this template and add some sort of story about the horrors of war to it, or I think Bleach definitely is way more similar to Dragon Ball in terms of how it handles powering up and stuff, but it's like Dragon Ball with swords. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily rank Dragon Ball Z above Bleach or Naruto, and maybe that's just because I started with those, but I really enjoyed my time with it. I'm really glad I read it. I look forward to watching the anime at some point, seeing how different it is. I'll go for Dragon Ball Z Kai, of course, because apparently that gets rid of all the filler. And I'm also interested in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, the game, which apparently retells the entire story of Dragon Ball Z in video game form. I've been burnt by that before with the Naruto games, because I love the concept of telling the story in the confines of a video game, especially with the graphical style that they do, but I'm not a fighting game guy, and I could not get down with the gameplay of Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm games, which is a real shame. I might try again at some point, but yeah, hopefully Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is slightly different in terms of gameplay. It's kind of hard to tell from the trailers. I may or may not go for it. Maybe I should watch the anime first. I don't know. All I know is I had a fun time with Dragon Ball. If most of my feedback seemed negative, it wasn't meant to be. It was just me expressing how different the manga was than I expected. Can't overstate this enough. Had a great time with it. Thank you for listening. Maybe soon I'll have thoughts on Dragon Ball Super, although I don't know how I'd do that, because as far as I'm aware that's an ongoing manga. I just realised I never addressed one of my biggest pet peeves before we go, of Vegeta being this absolute villain who just kills a whole bunch of people, and then I knew he kind of became a good guy later on from what I'd heard peripherally, but I assumed he had some sort of redemption to get to that point. He had not. They just decided he was cool and hung out with him. But this did kind of get addressed during the Boo arc, so my kind of gripes with that did subside eventually. But yeah, that really is the end of the video. Thank you very much for listening. Let me know what you thought about Dragon Ball, and what you thought about my thoughts on Dragon Ball, and how wrong I probably am. And I'll see you in the next video, or hear you in the next thoughts on. Oh, and Toriyama should never have given Krillin hair, it looks weird as hell.